On January 27th, 1972, my life changed. I was 31 years old, and that's the day that I was traded back to the Minnesota Vikings and Bud Grant became my coach. In all my life, I've never had a coach like him. He never raised his voice to me or any of our teammates, but he knew how to lead, and every player in the locker room could feel it and followed. For more than 50 years, whenever someone asks me, what's it like to play for Bud? I've told them the same thing. If you can't play for Bud Grant, you can't play. He was the leader for one of the greatest runs in NFL history. We had the Purple People Eaters, Jim Marshall, Carl Eller, and Alan Page. We had other Hall of Fame players, Paul Krause, Mick Tingelhoff, and Ron Yeri, not to mention Ahmad Rashad, Grady Alderman, Chuck Foreman, and so many legendary players. I retired after the 1978 season, but never stopped being my coach. For all the years ever since, he continued to be my coach, my mentor, and my friend. The biggest influence in my life. A few years back, he wrote a book and called it I Did It My Way. That is the perfect title for him. He was the most genuine, authentic person I've ever known. He wasn't trying to be Lombardi or Landry or Shula or anybody else. He was just himself, and his way was usually the exact right way. I have so many great memories of the times we spent together and conversations we had, and I wanted to share a recent one. I got a note from him a couple years ago before one of his famous garage sales, written in classic Bud style. Fran, enclosed fine pictures of you and I, hoping you will sign in return. I will give you a 60-40 split. A garage sale is coming up. I am retired and unemployed. Of course, I signed 150 of them, and he sold them for $100 each. Afterward, I called Pat and told her, look, I don't want any of the money. And she said to me, good, because he wasn't going to give you any money anyways. We had that kind of relationship, and I've treasured it for 51 years. Bud will never leave my life. I will draw on all the lessons and stories and ideas that he shared with me forever. When we talked, everything he said made sense. He taught me more than anyone else in my life how to make things work. He not only made me a better player, but he made me a better person. That's true not only for me, but for all of us who knew him, and there will never be another person like Bud Grant. He'll always be my mentor, my coach, my hero. Rest in peace, my friend. I love you.
I think if Bud had come up at the same time that I did, we'd have probably been best friends. Well, we are best friends. But Bud Grant was wise beyond years. It was always a pleasure to talk to Bud about all kinds of situations because he had an answer for everything. And if he didn't have the answer, he'd make you think he had the answer. But that's the type of guy he was. He's a great communicator. An ability to talk to his people, and they would know exactly what he means. He had his own language. He had his own way of pointing. If he wanted you to do something and it was time to get it done, he might just give you a signal over there, never say a word. And everybody looked to him for, what do we do? What do we do next? I wish everyone could experience being on a team that he coached, because he's not just a coach of football, he's a coach of men. And he certainly changed my life for the better. Bud Grant will be remembered as the greatest football coach that Minnesota had. And like I said, I've had a lot of great coaches, but Bud's number one in my book. To the whole family, Pat, sorry for your loss, for the family's loss, but we'll all carry something away from Bud. You as a family, and me as a player. I love you, Bud. We'll all miss you.
Bud was a kind man. Kind husband, kind father, kind grandfather, kind great-grandfather, kind forever friend. And most important thing for a great relationship, most important thing, be kind to each other, be kind to each other, be kind to each other.
I gotta get prepared here, as only my dad would. I gotta get ready. He didn't realize when he was speaking that one handkerchief was not enough when he would get emotional, and he would be spewing spit and snot all over. I don't know if Bob Hagan made it here today. Is that a yes? Do we know? Bob is here, and I want to say a special thanks to Bob. He was a great friend for us during all this, and then, had a tough morning himself, and I just let you know our Grant family's with you, and I appreciate you being here. My dad would have said you're nuts to be here today, but I know how much you loved him, so I appreciate Bob. I also want to thank Sheldon Burns, our doctor. When you're the doctor of Bud Grant, you got problems, because he's not going to listen to you. He's going to explain each of his medical theories, and they each take about a half an hour of how he lived so long because he chewed his food. And that he knows how to fall. Don't worry. He knows how to fall. He's fallen 1,000 times. And he said, I'm not worried about falling. And so a special thanks to Sheldon. And we thank you all for being here. And I'll try to get through this, but if I got to blow some snot into a rag on my dad, it's okay. My name is Mike. I am Bud Grant's son. Kathy and Lori sitting here are the daughters of Bud Grant. Peter, myself, Bruce, and Dan are the sons of Bud Grant. That's how we've been known our whole life. Dan Grant, pause, Bud Grant's son. Kathy Fritz, Bud Grant's daughter. And what an honor it has been to be able to say that. My dad has been, and I look at this and I try to figure it all out, and I've been thinking about this for years of what is my dad, who is he, what does he mean to me, what does he mean to people? And all I could come up with was that my dad is a pillar. He's a pillar of our lives. And in our lives, there are big pillars, there are small pillars, there are things that support you. Many people, it's your faith. Many people, and for all of us, it's people in your life. You hope you have pillars. To a greater or lesser extent, Bud was a pillar in all of our lives. And what does it mean to be a pillar? I don't know. I think I knew, but I looked it up, and it says, it means it gives you stability. It gives you a sense of who you are. It gives you a peace of heart in trying times. And you have a person that is a pillar in your life. You feel things are secure and right in your life. A person who is a pillar gives you a sense of balance and something you can count on in this world when the trying times come. On March 11th, approximately 10 o'clock, there was an event in our lives that we felt to our core. All of us, to some degree, felt the loss of a constant pillar in our lives. And who are those people? To the Bud Grant fans and people of the True North, Canada, it was a loss of a constant pillar. They felt the shift. Across the prairie potholes of North Dakota that Dad loved, they felt the loss. From the fields of South Dakota to his beloved Jack Pine country of Gordon, Wisconsin, life felt different. In Minnesota, if you lived in the lake country of the north, the prairies of the west, the farmland of the south, along the St. Croix or in the duck sloughs all across the state, you felt a pillar in your life shudder. We know as a family that we shared Bud with all of you. We shared Minnesota, or my dad with Minnesota. When he walked across that field in short sleeves to help with the coin toss in that frozen field, he was all of us. He was our pillar. When he opened his home to Minnesotans, and really from all over, to his crazy annual garage sale, you found out that he was one of you as he sat and talked to people, any average person coming up, and he would take that time to be with them. By our cabin up north, there's a small little cabin, and my dad would come and have breakfast at a little corner cafe once in a while. And he would sit there, and these people would come in on Sunday mornings, and they would be wearing Viking colors because of the Vikings playing that day. And my dad would sit and talk to them. I was mesmerized by the fact that these people who he doesn't know, he would call them over, he would take the time, and he wanted to know about them. They might be a farmer from down the road, but he found something interesting about them. He really did. Now, to the players, as a coach, he became a pillar to those players. To not only as a coach on the field, but in their lives. I was fortunate to have a coach like that in John Gallardi at St. John's. Well, John and I didn't see each other all the time or as much as we wanted. When we got together, it was special. And I often thought of John almost every day. When we talked on the phone or got together, it was always a great day. Just as I know these players felt that about my dad. When I knew John was at St. John's and he was alive, it gave me strength as I went through life. The order, the pillar in my life of John Gallardi was there, and my dad was that to these players. We know it by their love that we've seen since he passed and even before that. He truly loved his players, even if he didn't talk to you. As some of you know, he didn't always say a lot to you at training camp, or maybe it might take a year or two before he'd say something. I can tell a quick story about Doug Sutherland, who passed away in Superior, was in Superior. My dad and I were at the high school to receive a Hall of Fame plaque, and my dad said to me, he goes, "You got to drive me up there." I said, "Well, why?" He said, "We can't find anybody alive that I played with, and you might have to introduce me." It's a true story. So I got there, and Doug showed up, and Doug sat there, and we're just off to the side as everyone's talking to Dad. And I don't know, I think this epitomizes my dad in many ways. Doug says to me, he goes, "I can't believe it. I'm 65 or whatever Doug was. I got up this morning, I knew I was going to see Bud. I went and got a haircut." He said, "All I was worried about was the hair was a little long on the collar." He said, he goes, "I can't believe that a coach can have that impact on me," right? But even at that age, if you walked in and saw my dad, he was still your pillar. He loved talking about you guys, and we spent a lot of time talking about your exploits on and, for some of you, off the field. He was, I know, your pillar. For the Minnesota Vikings, I think it goes without saying that Dad was a pillar of the Vikings. I'm not as bold to say he is the Vikings, but someone might say that. He represents that. Both he and the Vikings were fortunate that after he retired, and it feels like a couple years ago, right? And it was, 35 years ago he retired? That management, ownership has treated him with such respect, and our family is very appreciative. He was a pillar for the Minnesota Vikings. For our friends, his friends, as my dad would often say, in only the way that he could, "All my friends are dead." We'd say, "Well, Dad, there's some still going here." He said, at this age, so many are gone. But he was a pillar to them, and there's some of his friends are here that are his generation and his hunting partners and friends, and he loved those people. He was a good friend to the people that were close to him. He was the pillar to those. He worried about them constantly. For our family was fortunate to have two pillars that we relied on. My mom and dad joined together to form a foundation that this family rested on. Their strength and love built a family today. You'll see in today's pictures. Many of you know the feeling of the jolt when you lose that foundation of your life. If my dad was here, he would think for a minute and stare at you and say, "Well, you got to get over it." And we'd say, the simple truth, and we will move on. We won't ever get over it, but we will move on. We have a huge family. And if his, and he, if you look at the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, he couldn't have been prouder of this family. And he was that pillar to all of us. And we got to figure that out as we go forward. If his parents were here, they would look across this church at his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, and they would say, "Bud, you made it. And you really made it. I am Bud Grant's son. He was my pillar, and I loved him." Thank you.